All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name's Brian Peck. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see many of you here today. We're excited to do our second Mazévo Connect. I think most of you were here for the last one that we did last month, and it was a great success. We had a great turnout for it. The feedback was really, really good, and we're excited to keep doing these. We think it's everybody got a lot of value out of it. I know we did as well, just interacting with everybody. So that was great. So we do plan to do these going on about once a month is kind of what we're thinking right now. So we're going to probably do, we'll do one more here before the end of the year. And we'll let everybody know what the topic is on that here soon. If you missed the one that we did last month, we actually had Lindy McCurley from the University of Tennessee at Martin come and do a presentation on how they use Mazévo Ops and the mobile app with their operations staff to do room setups and that kind of thing. We did record it. It's up there on our blog if anybody wants to check it out that didn't make it last month. We are recording all of these and we will publish those out. So you can watch them again and things like that. So if you do have any suggestions for these down the road, any topics you want us to cover, we are open and all ears. We'd love to hear that. So just let us know what you want to talk about there, and we will take that under advisement. And as far as what we're doing today, the topic is going to be on user security in Mazévo, and we're going to try and demystify a lot of the things around that. There's typically a lot of questions that people have, especially if you're newer to Mazévo, but even if you've been using it for a while too. And so we just thought it would be good to cover that. So Dean's actually going to be covering that for us here today. I should introduce everybody on my side that I'm joined with. I've got Wendy Newland here. She's our trainer for Mazévo. I know many of you have worked with her personally as well. And then I've got Claire DeGroat here as well. And Claire works with me on the sales team. And and then of course, Dean Evans, who will be leading most of this today. As far as how we're going to conduct this, you're all on mute right now. But if you do have any questions, we prefer just go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll address them that way. We do, though, plan to save some time at the end to open up things for questions, and then feel free, you can unmute yourself and ask us questions at that point. So that's kind of how we're going to roll with it here today. So just put your questions in the chat. We'll be watching those and we'll make sure Dean can address those as well. So with that said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dean and let him take it away here.
All right, everybody, welcome. Good to see everybody. As Brian said, we're going to talk a little about user security today. I think we see a lot as we do support, we see a lot of folks in there as global administrators, and it's like, well, you know, you can put the reins on them a little bit and give them a little bit different options. So I thought we'd kind of concentrate on what are these other roles that are available and what do they look like when you mix and match them. So I just kind of jump in and go with that. The one thing I do want to do is I am going to paste 2 KB articles in the chat. The first one, security in Mazévo, that's kind of going to be my outline for today to kind of go through that. So with that, let me share my screen here. And you should be seeing my main menu here. I'm logged in. Now this, I'm logged in as a global administrator, you know, but it's what I want to do is go in over here under users and we'll just jump right in. There's 3 main user types that are listed here. Now, these are the main roles that we let you pick, and we obviously make it really easy to pick a global administrator, which has access to everything in the system. The next one down is a requester, and a requester is there's 2 kinds of requesters. There's a requester that can create events or, you know, enter requests or view their request or view their event. So this would be a view only requester. So a couple of notes about a requester. The requester would be able to use the mobile app or the web app and log in and see their events. So if they were view only, they would only be able to see their events. And they would be able to see any event that they're a secondary contact on or that they're a billing contact on. Okay. So it's not just the events that they're primary, it's the events that they're secondary and billing as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. There is an option that if you want, we can turn on the ability to let that requester see events for any organization that they're tied to. So let's say my requesters with the basket weavers and the chess club, and they have an event in there and they're the primary for the basket weavers. And if we flip this switch, the requester would be able to see any event for either one of those organizations that they're tied to. So there's some kind of nuances in there with the requester. In the event planner, similar, you have two kinds of event planners. You have one that can create events and one that can view events. So we're going to go through that. I've got a couple of examples. When you are an event planner that can create events, you can limit them to what buildings that they can make new events in. The difference, again, going back, an event planner can create an event for any contact in the system, while a requester can only create an event for themselves. So that's kind of the difference. Okay. And now we get into the meat of it over here. These are all of the roles that you can mix and match with requesters and event planners. If you're a global administrator, that tab goes away. But if you're just a requester, you can actually add a requester and give them some additional privileges. Okay. So we want to kind of go through this, but I'm going to kind of jump out here for a second, and I want to show you, just kind of talk at a high level. I'm going to open up another tab here. These tools here in this first column, think of those as an event planner that can create events. These three right here, find events, event book, and the event calendar, those are your view only tools for a view only event planner. Okay. If you gave somebody some academic functions, for those of you that do academics, it would be these right here. And then reporting, there's 3 reporting rules. Let me jump back. Let me go into my user here again. As I scroll down this list, there's 3 different kinds of reports. You can do analytics, a report publisher, and a report viewer. So what those are is a person that can run published reports can only see this option right here. A person that can create reports are these right here, from the event list down to resource usage. And then we take these analytics, these last 3, and those are in a role all by themselves called event analytics. Okay. Let's go back over here. Invoicing. So if you're an event planner and you can open events, you can turn on invoicing for that event planner so that they can actually do invoicing. Or you could have somebody that's just invoicing alone, okay, but they wouldn't be able to open events. The operations stuff is right here. A couple different roles. Review events is a separate role from manage operations. Manage operations gets you these 2 options right here. And then there's a special one for the worker that allows the worker to get in and actually complete the work, but they wouldn't be able to add new things, and you know, they'd only be able to complete work that's been assigned to them or work that's available for them to work on. For those of you that use approvals, there's a special role for you can assign to somebody that can only approve these secondary approvals. This will become a little more apparent when I show you these here. So what I want to do is I'll take an example here. I'm going to show you a user here. I'm going to flip screens. So I have logged in here as a user. Let me make sure I get the right thing here. So this is what your screen would look like. This user that I've logged in is an event planner in one building and a requester in several others. And I've also kind of turned on just the analytic functions. Okay, so I'm not going to go into, what can they do and request, because when you have requesting, you have the ability, you tie that to that security policy. We'll go back and look at that in a moment. But I wanted to show you what happens if you're in the event book. Now, this user that I'm logged in as is an event planner in the library and view only everywhere else. So a view only, the book would look the same to that user. Let me jump out here to November 1st. So here's November 1st. I'm logged in as a user that can make and edit events in the Donaldson building, but I can only view any other event in any other building. So here's what happens. Notice that my little drag and drop icon is not on that small business bar. And when I double click on it to open it, it only gives me this information panel. So I cannot get to the event editor to make any changes to this event. So that's the view only event planner. So here is an event. You see the little drag and drop icon. So if I double click on this, that's a building that I can manage events in, and it opens that up in the event editor. And if we let you in here, you can do anything to that event that you want. Okay. Now here's an event in my building, the Small Business Council. So it's in my building that I manage as an event planner, but when I double click on it, it's not opening. What happens is we're going to only let you open an event that's completely contained in the buildings that you can make events in. So what happens is this Small Business Council event is also down here in a building that I don't have privileges to edit in. So it looks just the same, it just blocks me from opening that event. So that's just kind of how that works in operation there. So, so let me go back to the main menu, and that would carry through to everything. If I'm in Find Events and I'm looking for events for the next week, as I go over here and click on this, it's not in a building that I have access to, and it's going to just pull up the information only panel. Whereas if I scroll down and click on this Donaldson library, it should open it up. So it's everywhere that you would be able to open an event. You either can or you can't. Okay. So that's the event planner. Let's see, what else has this user got? This user is also a service worker. No, they're not. They have analytics. I must have taken operations off of here. But here they can run just the analytics report. So let's say you wanted to give somebody just the ability to kind of go in and look at some data, and that may just be analytics. So you could just turn on these three options. I don't know that anybody's ever run ratings, so I'll explain that really quick. Ratings, you'll see this if you use requesters, but after an event, a requester, the next time they log in, gets a little, hey, how did you like the room? And they can rate it from 1 to 5 stars, much like you do when you take an Uber or Lyft ride. And we actually have that and record it here and show you what the average is and then how many ratings. So just a plug if you ever wanted to know what that was. It's under reports and it's the analytics side of things. So let me go ahead and flip back to my main. Here's my global administrator. And we're going to we'll go back and look at some other examples of that, but I think I've gotten through just about everything there. I want to look at some of the other administrative roles that you can assign to users rather than saying, I want somebody to get in here. A global administrator has access to everything in settings. There are some other roles in here that you can assign to somebody. So I'll go into that requester that I was on the other browser. And if I just go in here and type in admin, you'll see these other administrator functions here. So I've got academics, billing, events. So if you look at these, it may not make sense. Where it will make sense is, let me switch tabs here. If you look at it this way, this is the facility administrator's functions, this first block. This is an event administrator's functions right here. Academic administrator, service administrator. So you can mix and match these administrative roles and fine tune exactly what the user can get into rather than just saying, oh, let them get into everything. You know, pricing's a little sensitive for people. They may not want everybody in there messing with pricing. So you can turn on and off who can get to your pricing. There's some other specialized roles down here for calendar managers. If you have that turned on, and room signage, you've got that here. So, and again, if you're not using academics, this section just wouldn't even appear. And some of you may have some of these sections that don't appear because you're not using all of those functions. So just a way that you can kind of slice and dice the control and the settings rather than just giving everybody just carte blanche access to that whole thing. So, but that's these administrative roles right here. And in that article that I posted up, that first one, there's a couple of grids that are in there that describe exactly which functions you would be able to get when you give each one of these roles to somebody. So let's see, back to details here. Couple of other things, just little creature comforts for you. As you filter these, there is this filter by role over here. So if you wanted to find out who were your view only event planners, you could click on that and see, here's the list of users that have that role. Now, every global administrator has that role, but we don't show them here. We only show people that have been specifically assigned one of these roles. So if you're looking for facility administrators, I may not have any, but because I use the global administrator. So if you come in here and just look, there it is. This is what you guys would look like. This is Brian's demonstration database, but you always have a ton of global administrators in there, and it may be useful to fine tune that, okay? There's another relatively significant role here. It's the user administrator role. So this role, this user admin role, let me go back in here and look at that admin role. So if I do user admin, this role allows you to create and edit users. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful role. So if I can create a user, that must mean I can edit myself and give myself any privileges I want, right? So this would be, it's one step down from the global administrator. So they can create new users that would have access to the system. Okay. Now, some of you run the requesting process, not all of you, but some of you do. And there's a way that if you're an event planner, let me go back out here to my main menu. I'm jumping around a lot. What you can see right here is requesters. Now this column I told you was for event planners. There's a special setting that we can set for you that would deputize event planners so that they could manage requester security. Okay, so if you have a lot of requesters instead of giving somebody global administrator or user administrator privileges so they can touch anybody in the system, we can turn on this feature where you can get in and all you would see are requesters. And all you could do is change their security policy or change them from view only. It's that same screen I was on just a minute ago, but it's very limited to what you can do there. So you're really, because we kind of looked, the way we looked at this is like, well, if you're an event planner, you're creating events for everything, and maybe that would be a good role to let them also help with managing the requester security. So we need to turn that feature on for you, and it would just show up here. So if you don't have requesters turned on in this column, then that's something we can turn on for you. So, but that's just another way to offload some of the security from the one or two individuals that manage all of the security and put it over on some of the event planners. So let me switch screens here again. I'm going to go ahead and log out and change over here. Here, let me just share my other screen. And I'm going to log in. I was logged in as somebody that was a requester. And now I'm going to log in as an approver. So this user that I'm logging into has a couple of roles. They are a view-only event planner. And as I described earlier, and it's easier to see it this way, here's the tools that view-only event planners can see. And I've given this user only published reports. And I've given them the approval process. So when they go in here, they would only see things that those are the approvals that are on their plate, right? They're not managing approvals. It's just, here's the things that we're waiting for you to approve. So you can kind of mix and match those. So, if this was a campus security individual that was, events over 100 need campus security, that would be an approver. You could give them the approval role, but you may also say, well, you might want to see what else is going on campus, and you might give them view only privileges, or you could give them a report. Okay. So as a person that can only run published reports, this is all you would have available to you. Any report that somebody said all users can run. And it's really simple. If it's today's setup report, I just click on it. I don't get to pick the date range or anything because it was set when you published the report. Bam, here's today's report. So for a novice user or a infrequent user, it may be a great way to give them access to the system so that they could get in there. And again, let's go back into the event book over here. Because I'm view only, I can actually view any building out here that I want. But again, view only, oops. As a view only, I can't do anything. I'm just there, and let me pick up my, okay. So as we go forward, so there's your view only. Now, I can't drag and drop. I can't really do much of anything to those events, right? I can just see that they're on there. So it's another, I showed you in the last time we were over here, a person that was a planner and a view only across those. Now this is just a pure view only. But so if I try to double click on that, again, it's going to give me the pop-up. So I think I want to kind of open it up to questions from here. I don't know, do we have any in the chat or anything? I wanted to save a lot of time so that if we needed to make some examples, but I think I've covered the bulk of what I wanted to show you. So
here, Jane's asking if there's a possibility of creating a tenant administrator. That's Jane from North Alabama.
Um, well, yes. Jane, in your, let me go back over here to my other environment. When I'm looking at this security, it is contained within a single tenant. So I could be a global administrator for any kind of user in tenant one. And then when I switch tenants, and some of you, this may be new to you, but you can have multiple tenants here. So if you had, in a school setting, you might have the library as a tenant and the student center as a tenant. As you go to this other tenant, you're like a brand new user over there, and I may only be a view-only event planner in organization number 2, but I'm a global administrator in this particular tenant. So yeah, it's all of the security we've just shown you is tied to each individual tenant that you have in your system. So.
All right, let's see. David just made a comment that he can't see. He was talking about ratings, and he can't see individual building ratings. It says when he selects a building, it automatically selects all buildings there. So I don't know if something's going on with that or not.
So if you came in here and said student center.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We'll take a look at that.
It's a little
Clearly
quality
nobody
control.
uses ratings enough to tell us we had a bug, but David, you get it.
Let's see. Kimberly from Texas has a question about messaging. Is there a way for event planners to see the messages and confirmation templates?
So, okay. So Kimberly, you may want to unmute Kimberly. Do you want them to be over here in messages and in confirmation templates, or do you?
So my 2 event managers, which have a lot of permissions, but they can't see the messages. So like when they're trying to choose the best message to send in a situation, they can't actually look at what's in the message because they're not global admins. And I was actually thinking of making them global admins temporarily as we go into the reservation process. So, and unfortunately, because I can see it all, I can't really tell you what they're seeing. I should have had one of them log in with us, and but they can't go in and look at, they have to send themselves the message, basically create a fake event. And so I kind of thought it might be something we're doing wrong. Like there's probably an easier step.
Let's just see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and share my requester screen. It's always great when you guys, point out the bugs, on these things. It's just, it's always good. So let's go find an event here. So I'm an event planner in the Donaldson. So let me go find that event really quick here in the Donaldson library. It's this common ground. So what you're saying is when I go run a confirmation here, I'm not seeing, you're not able to pick all of the messages.
They can pick all the messages. What they can't do is before they run the confirmation, go in and look at the messages and say, actually, in this situation, I want to send them the, you're being canceled because you've broken the rules versus you're being canceled because the building is shut down. We have, we're really using the message system very fully because it can do so much. But they can't look at it.
Well,
and I think it might be, I feel like there's a way.
Well, if what they can do is they can select the message and they can see a preview of it right here on the confirmation. But what you're saying is they would want to know is they get this drop down, but they don't know what the district use policy says. Is that the right message? So they want to, you don't have any context for what the text is in that. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, and actually how it came up, Dean, was I set up some new ones and I said, I'd like y'all to go in and look at them and
Oh, yeah.
see if you see anything that maybe I'm not catching. And they were like, we can't, we can't go in and just look at all of them.
Yeah, let me go back over here and share my other screen where I'm a global administrator. If you're a view-only event planner or any kind of event planner that doesn't have any admin privileges, you wouldn't have the option to get the settings. Now, if you're basically saying you want to give them access to this button right here so that they can go in and see.
I'm gonna pull one up so I can double check what they can see, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, so in order to get to this section, you would have to give them event administrator access in addition to the event planner. My only worry about that is they can start messing with some stuff here that's kind of critical, right? You know, they can mess with the questions, and probably the one that's near and dear to my heart is statuses. You want to be careful with who can touch statuses. So, because that affects the booking in the system. So, but if it's just this one area, that's where we've kind of taken a different stance than the way EMS worked. EMS gave you, which was the old system that quite a few of you came from, gave you the granular control to say, I want this user to go in and touch each individual, each item on here. And just for simplicity, kind of on our, hey, we want to make it simpler, we've kind of grouped these things and put them all together. So we don't have the granular control to say, I want them to be able to just go in and touch messages. So.
No problem. We can print them all out. I can look at them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they could still get to it if they just previewed a confirmation. They could kind of flip through them, but that's kind of hokey. I mean, it's not as easy as just seeing a whole list of them. So.
All right. There's also a question here from Kathy at Park Cities Baptist. Is there a way to restrict an event planner who can create events to only having for approval and cancel statuses? So she's really asking, is there a way to limit people by status there?
Oh, Kathy. No, we don't have that. We've heard it. But again, kind of our whole granular security and not going to that level of detail, we don't have the ability to limit an event planner to a list of statuses. Now, I know the EMS users on the call, you know, you could set up security that way to where you could say this user can touch events in confirmed or canceled or whatever statuses you use. But we've chosen not to go down that path, primarily because it's really hard to configure. I mean, it's not hard to configure, it's just more time consuming to configure that. And then the more granular we make that security, the harder it is to set up a brand new user. But that actually is on our list, Kathy, from the last time you asked for that. So we've got it out there. It's just.
I'll just keep trying.
Okay. No problem. So.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions they just want to throw out there? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. Sometimes I know it's easier to just ask the question verbally than it is to try to type it into the chat. So we'll open it up for anybody that has some questions.
Come on, you guys. Security based on event type. Again, that's kind of similar to what Kathy asked for status. we don't have the ability to limit. So David, is that you want to limit users and what event types they can select? You can unmute yourself, Dave, and just.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So for most outdoor spaces, you need 14 days in advance to request an event.
Okay.
And that's based on the various approvals that need to come in.
Yep.
We need 14 days to do that. But if someone just wants a contact table, we can really get through that within fewer than 5 days. And so can they request a contact table in the outdoor building, but be able to request that fewer than 14 days in advance?
Yes. So a contact table is a room. Let me just start with that. Is that a true statement, David?
No, it would be in any room that's in the building.
Oh,
I
so
mean,
there-
that would be the thing, is that you add more rooms and then,
yeah.
or you add a different building that's just contact tables for outside. I don't know if we want to go that route though.
Yeah. If it was a room, you could configure the security policy to allow you different timeframes for different rooms, right? So let me jump into security policies here. Now the demonstration system we're looking at has advanced security, which is a little different than some of the simpler ones. If you needed this, we can turn this on for you. But the way
We have that advanced.
yeah, I think you've already got it, David. But what you would do is you can create 2 of these security groups. So each security group gives you a list of rules that you need to abide by when you select rooms that belong to meeting rooms versus study rooms. So here you can say, in this example, meeting rooms, we're saying the last booking is 180 days out, versus study rooms, the last booking is 4 days out. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for folks that haven't configured security and stuff like this, so then what you would do is you would apply that to the rooms, and you would see these rooms play by the meeting rooms policy, and these other rooms would play by the study policy, which apparently we don't have any rooms in here by the study policy.
They're on page 2, I think.
Oh, okay. There they are. Got it. So you might be able to do, if it was room-based, you might be able to do that. And then those groups of rooms can play by different rules. So some could be 14 days in advance, some could be 5 days in advance. So you can make as many of those groups as you want underneath one of your policies. Okay. Let's go look under this faculty policy here. So these 2, the breakout in the classrooms, they're 24 hours in advance, whereas this athletic and facility conference can be, 2 minutes from now.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know that helped. So.
Well,
Maybe.
not in my specific case, but because different kinds of events happen in the same location.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
so, if there's an event out there, we wouldn't want like a contact table out there, or an info table out there. So
Yeah.
it'd have to be the same room, because that's how we
Yeah,
keep
let
our
me,
peas and carrots separated.
yeah, let me go back over here. Give me 1 second to, I'm going to show you the peril of that. All right, let me switch screens here and go back over to my other browser. So now I'm logged in as a requester. So here's my fear, David. If I come in here and say, this is my contact table, and here's my list of events, of my event types. So you're saying one of these would be contact table and another one would be meeting. So based upon this selection, I want to drive the booking policy based on that. Here's the peril in that is that your requesters are rather sneaky, and actually they're really smart. And what they would do is once they figured out that they could pick contact table and make it 5 days away, they'd always pick contact table because everything from here forward on the flow would be any room in the system that you've granted them access to. And so it wouldn't be long before they figured out, well, just put it as contact table, nobody cares, and you'll get it 5 days away. So that
Right.
that would be my fear of driving it on event type. So yeah. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for saving me from myself.
all right, what's Katie got here? Be able to open any event, run a confirmation. So you want somebody to send a confirmation and add attachments, but they're only view only. You don't want them in there. Well, a couple of thoughts on that. Is everybody aware that you have an option for the requester? So I'm logged in here. Let me start again here at the beginning. I'm logged in as a requester that had limited event planner access, right? So in Katie, in your example, you want the person to be able to open it up and send a confirmation with attachments. That would be the problem, is the attachments. But one thing, what's that?
I just want to clarify. So I just want them to be able to attach a document to the event, not necessarily to the confirmation that they're sending, but to the event itself. So this would be for our student organization business office, where they would, they just need to view a student organization's event, pull a confirmation so they can see the total charges for our office, and then they'd attach the form of payment information to the event. It's kind of my goal there.
But
Does that make sense?
yeah. But you don't trust them enough to give them event planner access because they might change stuff.
I wanted to not overwhelm them with options.
Yeah, the problem is we'd have to come up with a different way, right? Let me go back into my Donaldson Library event here. So if we let a view only person in here, now all of a sudden they have access to all of the tools, right? And they can start changing and adding. So we'd have to turn all of that off except this documents, right?
Yeah. I'm probably
So
trying to narrow things down way too much, aren't I?
Yeah. And if then all of a sudden you've got one person, you've got one group out there wanting attachments, the next person might say, well, I don't want them to touch anything but tasks, right? So then it's a really slippery slope. And then we're right back kind of in the configuration nightmare that you just left from EMS. And it's like, we want to try to keep everything a little simple, but I see your point. I guess if there's just a select number of users, you could give them this and say, hey, stay out of here. And if you see them in there messing around, you can take their privileges away, I suppose.
Luckily, I don't think we'll experience that.
Yeah. Kathy at Park City said she's got a couple users that probably would play around in here. So we can't give them too much power. So, but you always have this history tab at every level that would show you any change to anything, a booking, a resource, the event, shows you who changed it, what they changed it from and to. So if somebody started playing around, you can always get in there and look at the history of that. Okay.
Awesome.
So I don't know that answers your question, but it would be difficult for us to let you in here and then just say, well, I want access to one of these tabs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yep, so,
Great. Thanks, Dean.
all right. Any questions on anything? Doesn't have to be security related. So,
I have a question for everybody out there. Is anybody using the new drag and drop yet? We put that in a couple weeks ago now. I see Christy shaking her head. Good. Those of you that left EMS, you know what we're talking about here, but that was the being able to go into the book and click on an event and move it to another room or another time, something like that. So we know several people that had been excited about that. So it's just curious who's using it.
go back out here to my Donaldson. So that's right here. So if you don't know what we're talking about, as you hover over that bar in the event book, you can literally just grab it and drag it down here. And it'll ask you, hey, you're changing the room. Right? So you can say save changes rather than having to open up the event and move it. You can also change the time that way. So if you need to move it out, start it a little later, you can do that as well. So you could drag it if you had privileges to multiple buildings. You could drag it to another room in another building. So. Okay.
Right. Well, we've got some fun stuff we'll be releasing tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow, as long as everything, we get through our testing and everything here today, but we've got a new update going out. So you'll get an email about that tomorrow at some point with all the new stuff in there. Yeah, any other last questions here before we wrap up? Did everybody find this helpful? Is this useful for everybody? Good. Excellent. All right. Seeing some thumbs up. Great. So, all right. Well, if there isn't anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Like I said, we did record this. I will get this posted out there. You'll get an email from me with the link once that's up there and posted and everything. And then just keep your eyes open. We'll be doing another one of these probably after the Thanksgiving holiday before we really get into the holiday season there. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, with that said, thank you all so much for joining today.
Thanks, everybody.